In football, there are several different types of defenders, and you shouldn't approach them all in the same way. Some defenders like to fly in and make their presence known. Some defenders like to sit back and read the game, and some defenders try to force you away from the dangerous areas. Facing these types of defenders can be very difficult in game, but you can have different strategies and ways to attack them to be more successful in game. So in this video, we'll talk about these three types of defenders and how you can beat them in any 1v1 situation. And not even just how to beat them, but how to dominate them, to win every single battle and to make them look silly. But on the flip side, if you're a defender, make sure you pay attention to this because these tactics are what attackers are going to use against you. These strategies that we're going to talk about in the next few minutes will completely change your game on both sides of the ball, so stay here until the end. Number one is the patient defender. When I think of this, I think of Virgil van Dijk. This type of defender will sit in, read the game, and try not to put too many tackles in. They don't want to be beaten in these 1v1 situations, so it's all about delay. This type of defender will try to patiently push you into a direction where there is support for them and somebody else to put in a tackle. They're a type of defender that wants to block your path through the middle, force you into wide areas, and it's very difficult to beat them with pace because they're going to back up, they're going to get a head start, and they're going to have several yards to either take away the ball or take you out so you can't both get past them. So when you have a type of defender that's so patient and is giving a buffer zone, how are you going to beat that type of defender? What you have to remember is that to beat a defender, you need to change your pace and change your direction. So when you look at these patient defenders, you can't be going at them at full speed. You have to slow down, almost slow down to their pace. If they're going at 50%, go at 50%, match that pace, because then you'll be equal, all right? You try to close off that distance incrementally so you can get closer to them, and right when you get within an area where you can possibly go in either direction, you need to explode quickly once they're off balance. And especially if they're a defender that has less pace than you can go at them a little bit more slowly. You can drive right at them, try to square up their hips. These types of defenders are very good at pointing you in a certain direction, so you need to almost counter their movement and try to get them to drop their front foot so that they're flat-footed, so that they're square. And once you've closed off that distance a little bit, maybe you're within 1 or 2 yards, you can use your pace to your advantage and change that pace, change that direction very quickly and explode out. Now, if they're a defender that's faster than you, it gets a little bit more difficult, of course, but what you're going to do here is you're going to, again, almost try to let them believe that they're the one in control. Take their lead. If they're forcing you in a certain direction, take small touches, start taking that space, and then you have to use a shoulder drop. You have to use some sort of skill, some sort of explosive movement to get them to think that they have you doing exactly what they want. As you start to act like you're going to push the ball down the line quickly, they might bite on that. They might bite, they might drop a couple more yards, and then you can easily explode in the other direction and you have a bit of a head start. And a lot of times, even if these defenders are patient, the fast ones are going to try to cut back aggressively and get back to the ball. So then that's when you can use their momentum to your advantage again, cutting again, beating them down the line in the original direction that you wanted to go. The main thing here with these patient defenders is that you have to take control of the situation. You can't get impatient. You can't just take a big touch because you're trying to beat them quickly and because you're frustrated. You take control of the situation and you look and you focus on those little body movements, those little movements of can you get them to drop their front foot that tiny bit. Once they start to shift their weight, that fraction of an inch, once they start dropping that front foot, that's when you know you've got them off balance and you can explode in the other direction. Now, specifically, we're talking about 1v1 situations, but always as an attacker, can you think of how you can be creative to turn a 1v1 into a 2v1? Against these types of defenders, again, it can be very, very difficult to beat them in a 1v1 situation. Using some of the points that we just talked about, you can implement those to beat those types of defenders. But if you can take a touch and you can take several touches that get them into a position where you can combine with a teammate, that's when you'll really see success. So beating them 1v1 is important. It's important as a winger to be able to do that. But If you can create a 2v1 with an attacking mid, with a striker, with an outside back, with whoever that you have available, you can get them to shift their attention, and you can quickly shift that ball to a teammate and explode in a give and go around that defender. Number 2 is that bruiser center back, the classic old-fashioned center back. You think of flying into tackles, making their presence known, getting stuck in early, putting in those two-footed tackles, those center backs that everybody's afraid of. Now for me personally, as a player, these were my favorite defenders to come up against, because yeah, there's always that worry in the back of your mind of you don't have your eye on them. What are they going to do? Are you going to get studs down the back of your leg? Are you going to get knocked over off the ball? But these types of defenders are the ones that you can really bait into tackles. Now the main thing that you have to focus on against these types of defenders, you have to focus on the distance the ball gets away from your foot. And that means that you can't take a massive touch. You can't take a big touch, because they're going to explode and bite on that every single time, fly through the ball and fly through the man. So what you can do, of course, take smaller touches, keep that ball close to your foot, because you'll see that indecision going through their brain. They're wondering, oh, is that a touch that I can dive in on? Can I get them with that one? And then as an attacker, once you become a little bit more comfortable with what this defender bites on and what they don't, you can start to incrementally, as you go at them, start to square them up a little bit and take a little bit bigger of a touch. And then you can see, you know, they want to dive in. Maybe you get that touch a few more inches away from your body, and that baits them in, and you're agile, you're on your toes, you're ready to explode. So right as that defender starts to shift their weight to push forward to that ball, you can explode out either side. Now, one thing to keep in mind with these types of players is you're going to have contact. Mentally prepare, and you should know before the game what type of defenders you're going to come up against, but you need to know that you can't become rattled from these types of tackles. If they fly through your back, you take it, you move on. If they dive in really hard on a challenge and you explode around them and they take you out while the ball goes past, you just gotta get on with the game. Don't be asking for cards, let the referee manage it. You just smile and get on with your game and do it again. You'll create indecision in these type of defenders' minds because they're naturally hotheads. They want to get stuck in. They want to get in your head. They're going to be talking, chirping in your ear the whole time. But as an attacker, can you start to create that indecision of them flying into tackles and not knowing if you're going to be there or 2 yards away by the time they get there? Now, with all that being said, just make sure, again, against these defenders, you protect yourself. If you have a ball coming up in the air, maybe your keeper hit it long or a center back, just be aware of where that defender is. If you're not protected and your back is straight onto a defender, you got to know if that ball's in the air, they're going to come thundering in through that ball. So if you find yourself square and your back's directly facing them, know that that tackle is going to come in. You're going to take one to the back. You're going to take one to the head. So protect yourself and try to get out of those situations. Say, okay, you can have that one aerial ball. I'll prepare for the next one. And for the next one, that's when you get side on, you get an arm stuck out, and you be smart and you protect yourself against these types of defenders. Now, number 3 is what I call the pest. And the pest is somebody that regardless of what's going on in the game, they will not leave you alone. I think every footballer has experienced this in their life. I've experienced it too many times to count, and this is the most frustrating defender to come up against. They don't seem to care about what your teammates are doing. All they care is where you are and what you're doing. If you go out to the left, they're with you. If you go out to the right, they're with you. If you stay high and try to pin back center backs, they're there. If you drop in to try to get on the ball in your own defensive third, they're there with you. And these are the types of games as a footballer, as an attacker, where you can get very frustrated. There are so many teams that implement a player like this against somebody that they don't think they can manage with a team defensive effort. So they put one guy on one guy and say, don't lose your battle. So you can think of, as a Manchester United fan, you can see behind me, right? We've done this numerous times in the past, and one that really comes to mind for me is Ander Herrera against Eden Hazard for Chelsea. That was a game where Herrera just would not let Hazard get a breath. And if you watch that game, you know how it ended, you know how it went. Maybe it's successful, maybe it's not sometimes, but these are the types of games where you have those sort of players that are just relentless, they're a pest, they will not let you breathe. And of course, these types of defenders are the ones that are typically strong, fast, intelligent, So it makes it even that much more difficult. So we've talked about how good those types of defenders are, but how can you actually beat them? For me, to beat these types of defenders, it requires creativity. They're so aggressive, they're so strong, they're relentless, they're tireless, they're always going to be on your back. So as an attacker, getting that off the ball movement to start moving around, trying to see if they're going to only stare at you or if they're going to focus on the ball. If you can get on their blind side, shift their attention to the ball for a split second, you can move off the ball, get into a position where they can't see you, and then they're trying to be aggressive and recover and get to you. So while they try to get to you, then you can explode to the ball, checking to get it on your foot, into space to receive it wide or through in behind. And when that pressure is coming, once you create that little bit of a gap, you get a yard, you get 2 yards, 3 yards away from this type of player, that's when you have to be creative with your first touch. It can't be a touch that just stops the ball under your foot. It can't be a touch where you're trying to shield them off because they're just going to go through you. It has to be a directional first touch and using their aggressiveness to your advantage. If they're flying in from the left to put in a tackle, maybe you can take a reverse touch going back in the direction that they came from, as their momentum's not going to allow them to carry back. And this is a situation where they have to put in a bad tackle. And what you want to see with these types of defenders, the secret is get them on a card early. If you get them on a card early, naturally they will have to calm down. And if they don't, then they're at risk of getting a red. So using directional touches is what's going to allow you to put them in positions where they have to think, oh, do I put in that bad tackle and risk a yellow, or do I let them go in this situation? So then furthering on that, once you create those opportunities where you have separation, where you have that space where they're not relentlessly on you or within a yard of you, those are the moments where you have to be quality. Without exception, you have to make something happen. You have to create a dangerous opportunity, you have to get an assist, or you got to put the ball in the back of the net. Because if you don't, if they're not on a card, if you don't take advantage of opportunities, their aggressiveness is just going to ramp up because they're going to know, okay, the player got that one chance, that's all I'm going to give them the entire game. So you have to take advantage of those opportunities. So to put it simply, in order to beat these types of defenders that are always on you, that are being a pest, you need to be unpredictable, you need to be creative, and you need to move the ball extremely quickly, whether that's on a dribble, whether that's with a first time pass or a flick on. So I hope you found this video useful, and since you made it this far, please make sure to like and subscribe because I post weekly content helping you to become a better footballer. Also, I want to know, comment down below, have you ever been man marked, or which type of defender is your least favorite to come up against? I'll catch you in the next video.